2001: A Space Odyssey is directed by the one and only Stanley Kubrick, and is based on Arthur C. Clarke's short story The Sentinel. And of course, this year is the film's 50th anniversary, with the film releasing in the US on April 3rd, 1968, while releasing in the UK May 15th that same year. Without a doubt, 2001 is the most important and influential science fiction film ever made, and is one of my favourite films of all time, as you can see with the poster in the background of most of my videos. Of course, there will be spoilers in this review for a film that is 50 years old, so just be warned. In the words of George Lucas, Stanley Kubrick made the ultimate science fiction movie. The impact of 2001 is still being felt to this day with how we interpret space travel and our own existence. 2001 was the film that went on to inspire George Lucas with Star Wars, Steven Spielberg with Close Encounters, Ridley Scott with both Alien and Blade Runner, James Cameron with Terminator and Avatar, and of course Christopher Nolan with Interstellar. 2001 was the film that redefined how we interpreted science fiction films. The miniature work and special effects were completely groundbreaking for the genre. No longer were spaceships as sleek flying saucers that we saw on Forbidden Planet. Everything looked like something NASA could potentially create. The special effects work in the film landed Kubrick his sole personal Academy Award, who had spent almost 2 years creating the special effects for the movie. While Douglas Trumbull, the film's special effects supervisor, went on to Close Encounters, Star Trek and Blade Runner, and had been eagerly sought after for Star Wars. As with most Kubrick films, 2001 is a film that grew on people over time. People didn't really understand it when it first released, and it's still a film to this day that has people guessing about its true meaning, although now it is widely considered one of the greatest films of all time. 2001 is an experience made for the cinemas. You can certainly get by watching it at home, but 2001 is really a film where I have to be in the mood and mindset to watch it. It's not a film you can have in the background while you flick through your emails. You have to be wanting to sit down with it, making it one of the best pure cinema experiences you can ever have. If you ever have the opportunity to see 2001 on the big screen, please do it. From May 18th this year, the film will be having a limited run of the 70mm print in the US, and hopefully more territories to be announced. So be sure to seek out what was marketed as the ultimate trip when it first released. 2001 is a movie that you'll hear a lot of younger moviegoers call quite slow and boring, where the movie is more interested in creating this dream-like, almost Salvador Dali-esque experience for you, rather than rush to the next plot point, which for younger viewers more interested in immediate information would sound kind of maddening, which is why I urge anyone to catch it at a screening. Because hey, at least the movie comes with an intermission. The movie is broken up into really 4 sections that chronicle mankind's evolution and the interaction with this alien artifact, the Monolith, which in the film is shown as the key to advancing mankind to the next stage in our evolution. The film has often been criticised for being quite cold, emotionless and sterile, due in part to the film not having a notable protagonist till the latter half of the film, where David and Frank are introduced with Hal. Hell, there isn't any dialogue in the movie until you're about 30 minutes into the movie, but I've always felt like humanity is the protagonist of the film, changing and developing throughout the movie. Now of course, 2001 is a film designed for you to walk out with your own interpretation. The novel that released after the film came out offers more definitive answers than what Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke have in the movie, but I've always valued the film's ability to spark conversation between people about its themes. What does it all really mean? What is the point of the bedroom? The beauty is that it can be interpreted in any way, shape or form, as was the intention of Stanley Kubrick. That said, everything you see in 2001 is there for a reason, and is consequential for everything that comes later on, even if the plot isn't right in your face. The narrative is told almost exclusively through visuals and musical score, featuring mainly known classical compositions such as the Blue Danube, Zarathustra, and probably the most terrifying track conceived, Georgi Ligeti's Requiem, which just gives me shivers anytime I hear it. Music is everything to 2001. About half the music in the film appears either before the first line of dialogue or after the final line. In fact, almost no music is heard during scenes with dialogue. Kubrick had originally intended for the film to have an original score composed by his Spartacus collaborator Alex North, before completely scrapping it in favour of what we got in the finished movie. Every major event in the movie surrounds first contact with the Monolith. First with the apes during the Dawn of Man sequence. Now, Planet of the Apes shares the same anniversary as 2001, and I think most would argue that the apes in 2001 have aged far better than what we got in Planet of the Apes. They are incredibly more convincing. In this sequence, man learns how to use tools and weapons, this first major leap in evolution to which now features arguably the most famous jump cut in cinema history, where we suddenly go millions of years into the future, where mankind has now become aware of the Monolith. While this section often gets brushed aside in favour of the Jupiter Cruise segment, you've got to value this first big look at the future Kubrick goes for, where he introduces us to this grand, classy vision of space travel, taking time to marvel at the technology mankind has created over these millions of years. He also has fun in predicting alliances between the Americans and Russians, as well as experimenting with smaller forms of technology such as video callings. This segment includes a lot more heart than people give it credit for. Dr. Hayward Floyd's call with his daughter, actually Vivian Kubrick in real life, is not only very sweet but gives us our first look at technology holding the link at maintaining relationships before Hal later on acts to fabricate relationships with his crew. A foreshadowing of technology's dominance. At the same time, this segment introduces us to the actual plot of the film, where the monolith has been dug up on this site on the moon. Here, man's interaction with the monolith sparks the next evolution to travel further beyond the cosmos. In today's films, the first hour of 2001 would be condensed into 20 minutes. No filmmaker would be allowed this much time to spread their story out this much. We're allowed the opportunity to be taken into Kubrick's symphony and watch the plot slowly weave its way into the movie. So by the time that we've reached David, Hal, and the Jupiter mission, which is the meat of the movie, we have an idea of what's happening, without feeling too bombarded by information. As the Dr. Floyd segment features the most exposition in the movie, trying to explain the government's secrecy and conspiracy behind the monolith. Our time with David and Hal is the payoff to all that setup, where the last third to last half of the movie all becomes this space thriller, where we now know the conspiracy behind the monolith, but our characters don't. This whole sequence is just masterful. One thing I want to point out is Keir Dulley's performance as David, whose performance holds up incredibly to this day. Whereas with some of the earlier performances we'd seen in the movie, you can associate that more with the style and mannerisms of the 60s, but Keir gives this timeless performance as David, where if you cast him in this role today, you wouldn't notice any difference. That's how good he is. Kubrick, of course, never deviates from visual storytelling this entire time, giving us a grand view of life on the Discovery 1, showing us who's on board the ship, how much control Hal has of it, while letting Douglas Rain's calm voice as Hal ease you into thinking everything is fine, and as it should be. I've never had any issues with Hal's ability to lip read. The pilots have just woken up from hypersleep, and most of Hal's capabilities are hidden from them, including of course Hal's knowledge of the monolith. The cut to intermission right after the lip reading scene is just brilliant. Without the intermission, like in some prints of the film, it's just not as effective, but it adds a lot of tension and drama to the Hal conflict. The death of Hal, I think, is the most emotional scene in the entire film. As a character who Roger Ebert said actually behaves in the most human fashion of all the characters, Dave slowly pulling out Hal's memory chips is played out like a murder, which is all capped off with Hal eerily singing Daisy before he silences. It's incredible filmmaking. Of course, Hal is inspired and been referenced in all forms of media, from Alien, The Simpsons, and to Metal Gear Solid. He's not your big Robbie the Robot design that had been the norm. Instead, he was the system, the ship, and all the electronics. That control made him a menacing villain, even though he is technically trying to defend himself. Then of course we have the Stargate sequence in the movie's fourth section, which transports the movie into a Salvador Dali dreamscape, and unlike anything we'd seen before in the movie. Dave traveling through the wormhole or Stargate is one of my favorite sequences in the entire movie. And of course this was all captured before CGI was a thing. That slit scan technique is still inspiring filmmakers today, with movies aiming for the same visual nausea in films such as Doctor Strange or even the Lego Movie. Everything about it is perfectly otherworldly and captivating, as Dave travels through other dimensions and different worlds. It's perfectly alien and presenting something beyond human comprehension, and it's something I often skip forward to just to watch again and again. The most divisive portion of this entire film, however, is the bedroom, which has had people debating and confused for 50 years now, where in my mind David is being observed by these interdimensional beings in a place where time and space are irrelevant, as noted by David seeing himself age and evolve to the next stage of humanity, the Star Child. As many people have theorized, the Star Child represents the evolution of mankind, from ape to human and now an angelic being devoid of any physical form. Of course, as with the entirety of this movie, this interpretation of the Star Child is not definitive, at least not in the movie. What the Star Child and the ending represent is entirely up for you to decide, as was Stanley Kubrick's intention. It might not be scientifically accurate when viewed today, but as a purely artistic and fictional interpretation of the evolution of mankind and space travel, there is nothing quite like 2001. It's a film that stood the test of time and will continue to be timeless. All of Kubrick's shots are flawless and mesmerizing to this day, where anytime this movie is restored or re-released, it will look better than any film that is currently out at that time. 2001 is an important landmark in cinema history, as a quantum leap for science fiction and special effects, where filmmakers like Ridley Scott still call 2001 the unbeatable film that in a sense killed the science fiction genre. Everything the world knew about science fiction changed when 2001: A Space Odyssey was released, and its impact is something that the world should recognize for many decades to come. 2001: A Space Odyssey of course gets a 10 out of 10 from me and a Mono's Choice Award. Guys, I hope you liked this review. 2001: A Space Odyssey is of course one of my favorite films of all time. This was a pretty daunting review to put up, but as a homage to the film's 50th anniversary, I was glad I was able to put it together and share it with you. So guys, if you want to see more reviews just like this one, stay right here for your Mono Fix. Bye guys.